So, good morning, good evening, depending on the time frame you may be. So, as you can see my screen, we are having a question from Quora, which says, how do I install Docker on Ubuntu? So, yeah, someone has actually answered the question, saying first you have to update, then you uninstall old versions of Docker, such as Docker IO, and then this and this Docker version. Actually, yes, this person actually has a point, but the thing is that Docker now goes way beyond having to install it using this process. So there is a more robust process of installing uh, Docker Docker package on our Ubuntu server or any other Linux server. So, but we will be focusing on Ubuntu, and this particular method I will be teaching go for different can go for different Ubuntu operating systems such as Ubuntu 18, Ubuntu 20, Ubuntu 22, and all that. So sorry about that, having a cough. So fine. You can see some other questions here. How do I install Docker for Ubuntu 19? How do I install Docker for Linux? So all this you can see over here. This and this. I'll be doing a demonstration on that. So let's go straight to business. So currently I'm in my terminal, and I would like to SSH into my server. So I have a remote server actually that I had created, and it's in Linode. So I would like to copy that server. This is my server, which is SSH. Root is my user, and 170.187.141.146 is my IP address. So if you remember, whenever you want to SSH, what you have to do is that you have to follow a pattern, which is SSH space user at IP. That's all. It just goes that way. And if you have a key pair, then you have to include hyphen I and then the key pair. For example, if you are using an AWS server, it means that you have to use SSH hyphen I key pair, then user, which can be most times is Ubuntu by default, at IP address. If you don't want to use the IP address, you can also use a public address generated by your AWS server. So we'll be going in to this particular server, and we are in. We are in. So the next thing we have to do now is to, let me clear this. So the next thing we have to do now is to start installation of our Docker on this Ubuntu. And the first thing we have to do is sudo apt update. So we have to update our machine, right? Then um, after that we have to follow some processes. Okay, it's done. So we'll be clearing this, and we'll be running this particular command. Yeah. And then after running this command, the next thing we have to do is to make a directory under etc apt keyrings. So we'll be using that. Yeah. So we have created the directory, and the next thing we have to do is to go into a repository. It's actually a Docker official GPG key, and then we will be having that too, running it. So all these processes are important, as you must follow them. And then the next command we will be running is to set up a repository. So in order for us to do that, we run this command, and then we run it, and then the installation of Docker now starts. So I'll be updating once more my my Linux terminal, and then I'll be running a plugin on Docker. So this is the plugin I'll be running, and then ask me a question. I'll say yes, fine. And then the next thing I have to do is to run this command. So this command that I'm about to put in is actually to the command I want to use now is actually to give us different versions of Docker that we have. So if we are able to get these different versions of Docker, then the next thing we have to do is to select one of these versions. We are not using all, just select one of it, and then we will be provisioning our Docker through that particular version. So this is the command I will be running, and as you can see, we have different versions. So the next thing that we have to do is that we run another command where we will be able to input our version that we have chosen, and this is the command we will be using, and then we will modify this command. We will modify this command and replace version. As you can see, version string. I can choose any one. I'll be choosing this. So one more modification, here, and I'll be doing exactly the same thing. So this way we will be able to install. So what it says is Docker CE was not found. So it means that I must have done something wrong. So let me go back, or let me just run the command once more. So let me remove all this. Yeah, then nope, 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 nope. I will have to run. I will have to run this. I have to run this command all over again. But of course, it could be I did not copy the string correctly. That could be the problem. So, mm, okay. So let me copy another to be here, and then come over here. So I'll run it once more, and let's see what it gives me. So yes, it's running fine. So this way, our Docker is being installed. However, after that, the next thing we have to do is to set up, to start our Docker. Right now we've already set up our Docker, so yeah, it's done. So the next thing we have to do is to start our Docker, and then after that, we have to run one more command, which is having to run our Docker image. So we do a Docker run hello world. Yeah. So as you can see, it says hello from Docker. This message shows that your installation appears to be working perfectly. To generate this message, Docker took the following step, da 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 da, and a whole lot like that, and like that. So in order for us to, let me clear this. In order for us to know if our Docker was installed correctly, another way for us to do is to do a Docker version. And as you can see, Docker version 20.10.14 with a build of 8224086 has been provisioned. And if you want to know, you want to view the images that was created, these Docker images. Yeah, and as you can see, hello world. So hello world was the image we created last. Remember, after we had provisioned our Docker, we started the service, and then after that, we created, or should I say, we ran a Docker image named Hello World, and that is what we have here. And if you look at the container, Docker PS, we find out that we have no containers running. And if you want to check even more, you find out that we have our hello world as a container, but yet it's not running yet. However, we still have it as a container. So that is how to install Docker your on your Ubuntu, and this works for different types of Linux systems, even in Ubuntu 19, Ubuntu 22, Ubuntu 20. And let's go back to our question. It says, how do I install Docker? So yes, we've been able to answer that. How do I install Docker for Ubuntu 19.10? We've been able to answer that. How do I install Docker for Linux? We've been able to answer that. How do you install Google Chrome on Google? This is not part of it actually. How do I install Ubuntu Linux? Well, for me, well, I've quite um I've quite dived out of the scope of this session. However, let me just answer this. For me, it is better to use a cloud provider in spinning up your Ubuntu servers or your Linux servers. Not just Ubuntu and Linux servers, even if you have a Windows server, or a CentOS server or a Red Hat server. I prefer using cloud. I believe the days of using virtual boxes is going down the drain, because virtual boxes gives a lot of issues, gives a lot of challenges, especially when you don't have a PC that has a very high processor, and you find out that it starts dragging and becomes slow. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you have learned a thing or two from this session. So, to have a lovely time. And my name is Alex Michael, a DevOps engineer, and do have a lovely week ahead, a lovely day, or anything you might be. Just have a nice time.